Welcome to the Before You Buy or Sell a Business podcast, where we help buyers and sellers learn more about the acquisition process, discuss recent transactions, and stay up to date on the latest news in the market. Here's your host, Jarryd Johnson.
All right, so today on the podcast, really excited. I've got another Jarryd, spells his name a little different, but was a past client. Really excited to talk today because we're going to actually go through a deal that didn't end up closing. We can kind of dive into why that happened, and then from there, kind of discuss what Jarryd's up to now. So how you doing so far today?
Good, man. Appreciate you.
Cool.
It's excited to share the story and talk about you and I's past deal.
Yeah, it's been a little while. I say, I want to say, I think it was it 2021 when we started talking?
It actually was 2020. So
okay.
It was
it's been a while.
Right after COVID.
Went by fast.
Right.
Yeah. You'd come to me and you were working on a deal. I think you had a term sheet from another lender and you said, hey, can you do better than this? And I said, absolutely. And I really wanted to do that deal for a couple different reasons. So we were happy to get it through. But I'm sure we can unpack that in a minute. Maybe we can start with your background. Give us a little idea of where'd you grow up, professionally, all that stuff.
Sure. Grew up in Austin, Texas. I was actually a tennis player from age 6 to 20. So that was my life. I was one of those tennis nerds. I had tennis friends, tennis girlfriends. Like I knew nobody outside of tennis. So from age 6, it was every weekend, traveling with my dad to different tournaments. Ended up like actually really hating the sport because it became a job.
Yeah.
I did end up playing 2 years in college at a junior college. So that was cool and got that paid for. Didn't have a lot of student debt. And then kind of fast forward, I just kind of went through this, I went to University of North Texas, went through this corporate chain of different companies. I was in mortgage banking, I was in tech, I worked for an insurance company. And then right before I met you, I was at a company called Epsilon, which is a tech data-driven marketing company. I had been on this like corporate train, and I knew that there was my dad's an entrepreneur. My brother owns a pest control company, and I just knew like my uncle has a business too. So I just knew like, all right, let me give this corporate thing a try first, and then let's go out on my own if I don't see anything like shining, right? And so that's when I came across you and met you, and I started searching for businesses.
Yeah, how long were you looking for the business before you found this one?
That's a good question. So we found that business in 2020. I want to say around like summertime 2020. But even pre-COVID, like 2018 and 2019, I dabbled in the search.
Okay.
Right? I was just kind of, all right, let me look once a month, see what's out there. And then for whatever reason, COVID hit, and I'm thinking distressed. Right. Let's get the distressed businesses. Right. We've read all the finance books. We've read all the millionaires, the Buffetts of the world.
Well, that, and we went through 2008, 2009. And so you saw these people pick up real estate that could. And I remember that time too, because everybody kind of looked at it and said, oh, there's going to be, some deals here. We're going to find some stuff in the business. And then I feel like it just kind of didn't happen.
No, it was like 2 months of distress and then see you later.
Yeah, it was a rough time for lenders to try to kind of figure out what we could do. The bank I was at that point, I want to say I had about 17 loans in closing, and they canceled all of them but like one, and decided essentially they didn't want to do SBA lending.
Oh my.
So I had to sit there and try to figure out what I was going to do, because then nobody really knew what to do at that point. It was an odd time. And then we had to work on PPP and then all that crazy stuff. So I was able to transition to a different lender and kind of pick up from there. But yeah, I was excited as well, because I thought, we're going to see some stuff here is going to come out. But we're also super scared that nothing was going to rebound and we are going to have this crazy meltdown. Because remember, the stock market like crashed one day and then came right back up. So there was like a 2-day window to buy a distressed anything.
Right.
So let's see. So how'd you end up finding the business that we worked on together?
Yeah. So, we did, I pretty much went down the usual track of most searchers, right? Went biz buy sell. So after a couple months of scouring biz buy sell, I found this company. They were kind of a concierge relocation and an organization, like home organization company. So they'd go in there and your kitchens and you know, containerize, I guess, for lack of a better word, and just organize anything that you wanted in your kitchen, your room, your bedroom, your kids' rooms. And so I was like, we were in negotiations, and I was about to write an LOI, and I was like, you know what, let me go see what their competitors are doing, right? And so this was kind of like, we talk about proprietary search, right? From that point was just always what's on the marketplace, right? What's on these biz buy sales of the world. But this time I was like, all right, well, let me try to do some cold outreach. And so I started reaching out to their competitors, and I just sent a simple LinkedIn message to one that I found, had no idea what they were doing, had no idea how much money they were even worth. But I just said, hey, are you interested in selling your business? And they were like, yeah, let's talk. So literally like 1 week later, I'm on the phone with this guy that I've never met, attempting to buy his business.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably one of the most interesting ones I've heard of. And I would say you were probably ahead of the curve when it comes to kind of what we've evolved to now. And I'm sure we'll get to that. But with the search fund idea, kind of really, I feel came about maybe about 11, 12 years ago. But in that point, it was a little different. We had, I guess I sound old, but we had kids like right out of, MBA or right out of school. Most of them went to Ivy League schools. They would kind of come to us and say, I want to buy this $7 million business, and my dad's friends are going to give me the money for the down payment. And we kind of like laughed at them and said, you have no real experience. You don't know what you're doing. Like, go work and come back. So now a lot of people have started to actually finally come back with that. But you looked at it outside of the box to try to go and actually search for a business, where at that point in time in 2019, 2020, most people weren't really doing that. A lot of them were just hitting up the business brokers. So, you had the foresight to go and kind of look at that. So, I know you've kind of almost created a little bit of the search fund buzz and what's going on out there. So, it's kind of cool to talk about. So you got them on the phone, started talking to them. How'd the negotiations go? What'd you do as far as kind of your due diligence at that point?
Yeah, sure. So, and I guess I had learned a little bit of what I should ask for over my last few months of search, right? Actually seeing broker deals and how they've kind of organized their package. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just go ask for what I'm seeing it in other packages, right? And other deals I'm looking, ask for financials, tax returns, all that good stuff. In terms of negotiations, so yeah, it started off very slow, right? It was like more like building a relationship, like getting to know each other. And then it kind of went on for like 2 or 3 months, right? It was like, what basically the question came, what are you going to value my business at? And I told them, I'm going to do like 3.5 multiple, 3x times your EBIT or whatever. I gave them some range, because I didn't know their financials. And they were like, okay. And so they sent me their financials, and then we kind of went back and forth for like another month and a half, right? And I'm usually not a super aggressive, like salesy person, right? So for me, doing cold outreach was a little bit unnerving anyway. And so I didn't really want to be pushy. But it came to a point where we were just going back and forth. We weren't getting anywhere. Things had just plateaued. So I finally sent an email and I said, look, you want to do this. I want to do this. Are you ready to go? Right? Which is outside of my personality. And they were like, the next day, LOI was written. Let's go.
You just need a little push from you.
But I think building that rapport with them, we talk about building rapport and relationships with the seller and buyers is super important. That rapport we built over the last 2 months allowed me to make a comment like that, aggressively.
Yeah, made sense. So you got the LOI put together, started kind of looking for financing. How'd you start your search for when it comes to the financing side?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I Twitter, Twitter was a source. I'd kind of dabbled on there, and there started these little mini communities. SMB community was obviously being built up. And we were just kind of like, I would see other searches maybe close a deal, other searches looking at a deal. And I would ask them, what lenders are you using? Or, who's the SBA guys out there? And then Live Oak always came up to the top, right? And And then I actually went to searchfunder as well.com, which is a good social site for searchers. Most people probably, most of your audience probably knows, but for those who don't, I found a lot of resources there as to what lenders people were using. And then, so yeah, I started with Live Oak, and we can kind of dive into how that Live Oak transitioned.
Yeah, I think you also had a broker at one point, kind of helping.
Oh yeah, you're right. So I did have a broker. That was a funny story. So I had a broker, and so they took my entire financial package. Right. This is after the LOI. This is I have the seller's financial package. I have my financial package. I'm just ready to let's go. So I sent it to the broker. The broker had me pay an upfront like $2,500 fee, like exclusivity fee, which again, I was green to the area. I didn't know. I just thought this was just normal business, right? So I was like, all right, here you go. So he went and shopped. He went and shopped their package. I don't even know what banks he knew, but he came back with this one bank that had just ridiculous interest rate terms at the time. It was like, I want to say it was like 6%. Whereas I had just, again, this is another help of the Twitter community. I know what people were getting, right? So I just talked to one guy who closed a deal with Live Oak. He's like, oh, I just got 4.8, 4.9, right? Obviously, this is before the big interest push, right? We got it. And so I was like, all right, this is not cool, right? So I said, you got to go fight for me, right? You're a broker. That's what brokers do, right? Negotiate on your behalf. So I said, go fight for me. And he's like, well, no, this is what it is. And I was like, come on, you got to go fight for me. So I had to push him a little bit. So he said he went back. He said he did, and he came back. There was another thing too, the good faith deposit. He wanted a $10,000 good faith deposit, which is not market, as you know.
I think the down payment requirements were higher too, if I remember right.
Yeah, they were slightly higher.
Yeah, because I remember you. So you had reached out to me from my memory, and you said, "I want to, give you a chance here. Can you do something better?" And I looked at it and I said, "Oh yeah, I know that bank. Like I know those guys." And the credit manager actually worked with me for, probably 8-9 years.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, it's kind of his MO. He likes a little bit more of down payment." I said, "I wouldn't do that to you. I could do something a little bit better." And you said, all right, let me see. And then I remember you said you had the exclusivity though with that broker, and you were like, well, let me see if I can get out of this. And I think I remember you went to him and said, hey, I found something better. Can you let me out of it? And he said, if you think you can find something better, yeah, I'll let you out of it. Yeah. So forfortunately you got out of it. Yeah. Which made me happy. But
I did.
Yeah. So we ended up being able to work together, kind of go through the process. One thing that you and I were discussing before we started the show was kind of working with the right person at the right bank. I felt like with you, on paper right away, maybe it looked a little rough on your experience. Yeah. Because somebody's just looking at your resume, right? They don't know you. They don't understand, what you've actually been through. A lot of times what's crazy is from doing this for so long, I could talk to somebody for 3 or 4 minutes and understand if it's going to work, right? If they've got the experience, intelligence, education level, whatever it needs to be to operate that business. So I felt comfortable with you, and the underwriter didn't necessarily push back, but kind of said, yeah, I don't know here. And I was like, wait, can we interview him? I'm like, get him on the phone. And you'll be fine. And then that's what we ended up doing. Yeah. And I remember your hair was like real long at that point. Yeah. And she got on. By the time I hung up, she's like, I love this guy. Like, we're getting this thing done. Don't worry about it. So, and kind of knowing what to do with somebody's personality traits and kind of how they're doing. Because there's some people that maybe we don't want them on the phone, right? They might be great at whatever they're buying for that business, but they don't have, kind of the swagger that you have, right? So, we're able to do that, get it approved. So maybe kind of tell me, like, did you do anything specific for due diligence after the loan was approved? Maybe kind of what you dug into at that point.
Yeah. And I just want to cap off by saying, I ended up switching lenders, obviously, right? I got out of that contract, and that's when I found Live Oak and you at the similar times. And so going back to your point, just finding the right person at the right bank. But tell me your question again in terms of.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we were just kind of asking what you did with due diligence.
Okay.
After you got the loan approved.
So after I got loan approved, I went and did. I didn't do a full Q of E, but I went and hired this CPA. I'd looked at so many financials at this point, right, of different businesses that I felt comfortable. Like,
right.
It's funny, I hated accounting in college, but here I am,
we all
like
did.
scouring balance sheets and P&Ls, and I'm like, what am I doing? I used to hate this stuff. And so I felt comfortable, right? And I got their bank statements. I was matching a few things here and there, doing some due diligence on their ad backs personally. And then so I went to a CPA and basically, hey, can you just do a review of what I did and maybe dive in a little deeper on a couple of the ad backs and credit card statements and things like that. So that was really cool experience because I didn't have to pay for a full Q of E, which I know is justified in some cases, but I try to tell my clients now is like, you don't have to get a 35,000 Q of E all the time, right? So in the business. So I did that. That's from a financial standpoint of due diligence. And then I started bringing in an attorney at this point too. And there were some negotiations too that I learned on the attorney is, some of them offer hourly, some are often fixed, so I went with the fixed package because I just didn't I wanted to be able to call him anytime, right? This was my first deal. I knew I was going to rack up some hours. And so I called him as many times as I possibly could as he's drawing up the purchase agreement and doing the legal due diligence on their side.
Yeah. So then, quality of earnings is definitely something we can kind of discuss a little bit. Starting to see people do it more and more. I don't think that it was something that was, readily available to people up until more recently. And then you still have a lot of people that are kind of the mindset, they'll do it based on the size of the deal. So I would say maybe around 2 million is kind of where you'll see people start to dig in a little bit further on the financials. Yep. And then also just looking at what you're getting directly from the seller. If they're, instantly providing everything you need, and they're not having those weird conversations where they're like, well, here's my financials and here's my tax returns and there's some cash that, comes in here and goes out there. Most people are having a little bit less chance of like running into fraud when they're like on the sniff test on the front end. It doesn't look bad. So we're starting to see people do kind of more of that. So at least you were able to have somebody review it. And then of course having legal is also an option for people, kind of similar. The larger the deal, the more, in depth that you've got to look from a legal aspect. So we'll have people sometimes that just rely on the broker. And I mean, I've had people with no broker that write up a 2-page contract. And then I kind of end up being the broker, which is not fun, but it is what it is. So
you should be getting paid double fees on that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I would love that.
Your loan fee and your broker fee.
Yeah, exactly. So, obviously you learned a lot up into that time. If I remember correctly, I think you even went and met with them at one point. To kind of sit down and go through it. So then it didn't happen, didn't end up closing.
Right.
So maybe tell us what happened, what broke down.
Yeah. So, after financial due diligence, after legal due diligence, purchase agreement's almost ready. We're kind of doing some back and forth. Let's go. Okay. So let's finally meet in person. I think I went on site to their office, and then we went and had dinner. And so dinner went well. On-site visit looked cool. I'm really starting to envision myself in the business, right? Especially when you walk in any office, or you're doing any like tour of any business, you like start picturing yourself like, all right, this could happen. So it started getting very exciting at that point. And then there's a couple things that we started going back and forth on the purchase agreement. One of the main ones was my attorney wanted them to admit that they're following GAAP accounting principles, right? And I'm sure you've probably run across this several times, but they wouldn't do that, right? So they came back and redlined, we're not abiding by GAAP principles and on like every section of the purchase agreement. And then there was a few reps and warranties in there that they were also fighting back to. I think there was one that was they don't want any any indemnifications above 10% of the purchase price or something like that, right? So you're starting to see all these like kind of build up of things that they're being frustrated with, right? And so, one of the things that really started kind of going south is our attorneys at this point started arguing against each other, right? So again, me being new to this, I was like actually rooting my attorney on. He was like, oh man, I got somebody fighting for me in this. I've been at this game for myself. I've been searching, just grinding, finally got a business. And now I got like somebody on my team fighting for me, right? Not realizing he's killing my deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh crap, I might need to save this. But so, at one point they started arguing, and then we kind of just, cut the call. And then, so the relationship at this point is just dwindling down, right? And, after a couple of those arguments, I was actually on Twitter. We found something in due diligence, right? I don't know if you remember this, but we found that they had the PPP in the other income of the P&L, which when I made the offer, all it said was other income when we wrote the LOI. So after financial due diligence, we saw, okay, they have PPP income and other, and they also had a sale of a personal asset, a vehicle.
Right.
And so and this is kind of going back to Twitter and how we bounce ideas off each other and use it as a community, right? So I posted on Twitter about, I posted a question. I said, hey, what would you guys do if you found PPP and other income and you had already valued it and a sale of a personal asset? Just to get, I knew the answer. We all know the logic around that, what it should be.
Well, and I think what we also discovered was that was their, probably their QuickBooks statements or internally prepared financial statements. And a lot of times what happens is those will be a little sloppy and a little messy because you have somebody that's not an accountant kind of dropping in journal entries. And then when it actually gets to the accountant, when they do the tax return, they will really clean it up and will find it. Right. And so this was also at a point in time where a lot of the banks, like we didn't really know even what to do with PPP or even how the government was going to, tax it or include it as income and everything. So it was something new. Now it's easy to see because we'll find it, on the M1 statement and then the same thing, sale of other assets. Yep. If it's on other income, the first thing I'll usually do is go look at the statements and see what it was. Yep. And a lot of times people are selling vehicles and stuff, and they're having significant amount of money there. Yeah. So we have to back that out. Same thing with the PPP because it shouldn't be classified as normal revenue. Yep. So once you see that, then you've got to take it out. Yeah. And then I'm sure you went back to them and said, hey, the valuation is based off of a multiple of SDE. Well, now if I go and I remove this other income because it's not normal recurring revenue, then, it's going to automatically adjust the valuation of the company. Right? Exactly.
So I kind of held, and we still had some room to play with on the debt service coverage ratio. So we had some room, but it was more of an ego thing. Like, they didn't see it the way we saw it, right? And I said, you know what, like I've got to stay firm on this. And so, all that to say, the Twitter, I posted on Twitter, they end up seeing the Twitter post. Oh, so I got a call, like I think 2 days after I posted that. Again, I didn't put anything that would remotely signal or lead you to this company or these owners in any form or fashion. And so they got super mad. I got this call and it was like, hey, you tweeting about our deal? And I go, yes, but not specifically, right? There's nothing to lead you back to you. Right. And that just ruined, that was like the final straw. And again, you had sent me the approval. I want to lay this out. You had sent me approval. We had a commitment letter. We had the funds rating. My investors, I had raised $350,000 from 2 investors. Funds were ready. You had sent the approval, and we're going into closing in 2 weeks, right? So we're almost there. Yeah. And then I get this call. I don't think we could do this, Jarryd. It was just heartbreaking. Yeah. After 5 or 6 months.
Man. Yeah, I remember you calling me, and I was just like, what? And you're like, no, you want me to talk to him? Like, let me, I've been able to save a lot of deals by calling and talking to him. But I think at the end of the day, what I've kind of told a lot of people is when the deal dies like that, like 9 times out of 10, it was supposed to die. And so people will kind of come back to me later and say, man, I got this way better deal. I'm so glad I didn't buy that, moving company or whatever. And then it makes me happy because I'm like, yeah, that's a kick. Yeah. And then you're also
thinking about buying a moving
money.
company right now.
Yeah.
Who's moving?
Yeah. So
it might have been a blessing.
It ended up working out. Yeah. Yeah. They had some pretty cool clients and stuff. I think you would have done a really good job with that business. But yeah, it's just how it goes sometimes. So it gets expensive. I talk about it a lot. The ebbs and flows with the emotions during the deal. You've got a seller who is highly vested in their business, and they feel like they've kind of raised this kid, and they're just going to hand it off to some guy who's tweeting about him. Like, can't do that, right? Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, it happens sometimes. So. I want to say you've had a couple other deals that you were looking at. From that point, you were still very interested in searching for a business and finding something. You developed some good relationships with some investors, but I think you also started to get a little bit of a following on Twitter. And I think the whole small to medium sized business thing on Twitter was slowly growing at that point. And you kind of jumped into that and helped it grow. So it's kind of cool. I still need to spend more time on Twitter. We were talking about earlier. I don't know how people sit on there all day when I'm already working 15 hours. It's crazy. But so I think you looked at a couple other deals. Maybe if you want to talk briefly about like what happened with those ones, just so people kind of have an idea of how deals do end up going wrong sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll talk about one other, which was more of it was a larger deal, right? So it's kind of out of the SBA world. But it was like call it $25 million deal, right? It was a refrigeration company out of Texas. And so that was that moving company was my first time raising money, right? Never had experience raising money. So I was like, okay, I built a little confidence, right? I just raised $350,000, right? I felt like a freaking, hero in that regards, even though the deal fell. And so I was like, well, let's take that positive energy and see what we could do with it. So I knew this guy that was selling the refrigeration company. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, I think I could probably take a swing at, raising the money and buying your company. He's like, cool, he had an investment banker on the deal. He's like, go and talk to him. So I start talking to investment banker, see where they're at in the process. They had like 3 or 4 bids on the table. So I said, okay. So I went and started reaching out to my investor network that I've built. Started posting a couple things here and there on social media, and turns out I ended up raising $20 million from private equity in 2 weeks. So I spent 2 weeks back-to-back calls with high net worth individuals, institutional investors on this deal. And I even skipped Christmas. Unfortunately, we go to Michigan every year for my wife's Christmas. Luckily I have a supportive wife, but
yeah,
we
all need one of those.
Yeah, it's like they're your number one business partner, hands down. She didn't even bat an eye. She let me do it. She knew it was at stake.
Yeah.
And so I ended up raising the money over Christmas. So we went in with a pretty strong bid. I'm getting texts from the seller, like, you guys are in, you're strong. Like, I don't even know how you just did this, Jarryd, but like, you're good. Like,
yeah, if you can do that, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Right? That's probably how they looked at it.
And so they were like, we're getting this positive feedback, and then we're about to go in like as the winner of the bid. And then this PE firm comes out of nowhere, this large PE firm who already owned like 5 refrigeration companies. And he was rolling over equity. So he was like, all right, I'm not only going to get, they came in at like 8.5 times. We came in at like a 6, a little bit over a 6. And so even though that deal hadn't hit LOI yet, we were there, right? And it was like, I had spent 3 months of energy into this business, doing due diligence, preaching and pitching. So, I don't know if that was like a failed deal, but it was just so much energy that went into that. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Playing in the bigger deals like that, especially when they're rolling in the equity. Maybe you could explain what that means to some people. Yeah.
So in this case, the owner was going to roll over. So he's going to sell, let's call it 90% of his company. And he was going to roll over 10%, which is now the new rules in SBA, right? Which is awesome. He's going to roll over 10%. So he still had 10% equity in the company. So, what does that mean from a distribution standpoint? It can mean a lot of things, but in this case, let's say EBITDA was like $3 million. Well, he's going to get his equity distributions on a quarterly basis, right? Also, that 10% is now part of a larger platform, right? He was doing $3 million in EBITDA, but the entire private equity firm from a refrigeration standpoint was up at like 10 million EBITDA. So that 10% equity would just grew overnight, unrealized after that transaction. So he can now exit for even another couple $1 million.
Right. So their whole plan with the PE firm is to continue to roll them up, eliminate expenses along the way, so it just becomes more and more profitable. They gain market share a lot easier, and then eventually they either go public or they'll turn and sell it to most likely a public company. So looking at it long term for him makes the most sense. Rather than with you guys, because he's going to end up with this huge exit down the road. So something interesting.
There's a funny comment there, because he always told me, he's like, even if you're not the highest bidder, price doesn't matter. At the end of the day, guess what mattered, right?
Yeah, right. Everybody says that. Yeah. So that's how it goes sometimes. But okay, so at what point did you kind of realize, hey, I'm kind of good at this whole process, and you're getting a following on Twitter, and then on top of that, you're kind of realizing that you enjoy talking to the people. So when did you kind of make this pivot into, hey, I'm going to stop full-time searching for a business and do something different? And then maybe you can kind of lead into what you're doing now.
Yeah. I think it was two things. So the first thing would be, I started advising before I started advising. And what I mean by that is people are reaching out to me because I'm being transparent on my failures and the stories. And I think people really respected that. I was just throwing my L's out there, right? Yeah. And so they would reach out to me like, who are you using for SBA? How do I think about QV? How do I think about an attorney? So I'm helping, people, I'm advising them on things to do and how to address certain situations, for, the last 3 years as during my search. So I was like, you know what? So that really kind of stuck out, that people are reaching out to me. And then the second thing that stuck out was I was always very nervous about being an operator. We talk about this all the time, right? Yeah. Everyone talks about, all right, once the deal's done, now the real work starts, right? Yeah. And so I learned that I like the art of the deal, right? I like the raising capital. I like sourcing the debt. I like putting it together. Mm-hmm. I realized that I don't think I was fit out to be an operator at this time, current moment of my life. So with those two combinations of aspects of taking forth, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start advising. And so, here we are right now. I'm with a company called Riviera Capital. My partner, Luke Ellis, founded the company like 5 years ago. He's had 10, 15 years experience at a brokerage firm. And so he started his own, and I hopped on with him. So I'm a minority partner in the firm. And so we just help, people buy and sell businesses, right? Pretty simple.
So if you had a buyer or a seller that was thinking about buying or selling, and they came to you, kind of what's the process? What do you usually do with them?
Sure. So, I think it's kind of a couple tiers, but I'll ask them, what are you looking for? What's your criteria? And then, how quickly are you trying to make a move? In some cases, we have, so right now we have retained clients, right? Retained buy-side clients and retained sell-side clients. So they're paying us a monthly fee to either search for them or handle the entire buying process for them, right? Some are just kind of operating their own search, and we're doing it more on a contingent basis, right? Okay. So you handle your, buyer says, I want to handle the search, but I want to bring you in to help me transact the entire process. Okay, we'll just do it more on a success fee contingent basis. But if you want us to handle the search, talk to brokers, do proprietary search, we'll handle that for you as well at a certain fee on the buy side.
It's probably a lot easier for you considering you went through that, right? You had to kind of figure it out yourself.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. I'm essentially doing the same thing that I did, right? I'm just looking for businesses for other people. Right.
Yeah. But you've been able to continually hone it and figure out okay, this is what I had to deal with. So now I know how to do it. And then every single deal, you just get better and better at it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So, if somebody's looking to buy as well, are you helping them raise equity?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if somebody said, hey, I'm probably the right person to buy this business, they want to be an operator and they have the experience, but they're light on liquidity, they could come to you and you'd be able to help raise for the down payment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think this is becoming more prevalent. So I don't want to say what we're doing is some phenomenon, right? You can go find a lot of investors in many different places, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that, we've built a network and a database. They kind of know what deals that we bring across, right?
Yeah.
Kind of those old boring businesses that cash flow, right?
Yeah.
So our investors know what to expect. It's not some venture. These aren't investors that, are doing venture capital or some startups. They look at these specific deals that are cash flowing, and they think of it more of a real estate play with better upside.
Yeah, for sure. And they're also not going to come in and say, I want a board seat and I'm going to tell you what to do every single day.
Exactly.
That's where I think a lot of people, as they're looking to sell their business, they get approached to sell a piece of the equity.
Yep.
But what they don't, understand, and what a lot of times what happens is somebody comes in and tells them exactly what to do, and ends up, most of the time ends up going south. So
right.
Yeah, so it makes sense. If you've got individual investors, family offices, people with, capital that are looking to deploy it and get a return without trying to tell you what to do, then I think it makes perfect sense. And it's interesting. So I think maybe about 5-6 years ago, I thought about this, like, well, why can't someone bring in the down payment? The banks at that time were definitely not looking to
Really?
get comfortable with it.
Really?
Yeah, it's very interesting to see over the last, I'd say about 10 years, how business acquisitions with SBA lending has evolved. I mean, it was to the point where it was 25% down, no questions asked, like minimum. If you could get at 25, maybe 10% seller carry and like 15% down.
And it had to be you, no outside investors.
Exactly, yeah. And it was crazy to see that these banks, and even then, it was so hard. It was a lot of smaller deals, real good, auto repair, restaurants, stuff like that. That was pretty easy to see. Like those are the types of deals that trade hands a lot.
Yep.
We were never doing $6-7 million, tech companies, IT, services, stuff like that we're doing now. So it's kind of nice to see it go, from that all the way to now people are doing, 95%. You can do 100% if you're buying another company. But about halfway through kind of the rise of it, I said, someone should start a fund or something to put in the money to help with the down payment. The banks hated that. They didn't want to do it. They don't want somebody to not have skin in the game, right? And so I think what we're seeing now is kind of a good, healthy blend where typically the true, operator and that's going to borrow the money and be the guarantor on the loan is usually still bringing some money to the table. Sure. Is that something that your investors are looking for as well? Or maybe you can kind of give me an idea of the appetite of the investors.
Yeah, I'd say the appetite is at the end, really, I tell people at the end of the day, most investors, they want to see the IRR and they want to see that return on investment, right? You can create this nice fancy pitch deck. You can go, to Canva or whatever and design this thing, whatever. But they just want to know what is my cash, right? And I will say this too. There's a difference between a guy with a net worth of $5 million and a guy with a net worth of $15 million.
Yeah. He's
going to think a lot different, right? They're both millionaires, right? But that 15 millionaire is probably going to be less on you than the guy with 5 million, right? Because the guy with 5 million, that might be his boat money or his trailer money or his Airbnb, his house that he had for his wife or whatever. I don't know, right? So he's going to be probably a little bit, he or she, I should say, a little bit more difficult to deal with. And again, that's just based on my experience. But they're just looking for that cash on cash. They're seeing the potential in this SMB world, right? That's really what you've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. Yes, they're going to still have their real estate plays, a lot of these guys, right? But they're also seeing the numbers, right, and the projections. Yes, investing in business is more risky than real estate. We know that, but we also know there's a higher cash distribution, higher upside as well, and they want to be a part of that, and they feel like they get part of that PE world at a very small level, and they don't have to fight against, you know, the BlackRocks and all that of the world. Right. They can just go directly to these deals. So that's their appetite, right? That's what they're seeing.
Yeah, it makes sense. We're seeing a lot of the PE firms come down lower and lower too.
That's true.
And buying, you know, up some of the smaller businesses. And, you know, in a way it's making it more difficult for everybody, but then it's also upping the valuations because they're willing to pay more. So we're seeing, and it's funny. So I went back and looked in like 2000, I think it was 12. I went and looked at a business appraisal that I found, and it was crazy. It was like the same exact deal now probably would have had a 3.5 times multiple, and it was like 2.25. And so it was crazy to think like it was difficult to obtain capital at that point. It was nearly impossible to find an SBA lender that would do business acquisitions. Right. And you could have got a better deal if you could actually get it done, right? So people that were paying cash or maybe getting the seller to carry a large amount or something, they were doing great. And then now you're at this point where sometimes I'm scratching my head at the multiples. Like, why would you buy that? You're not going to make any money, you know? So, and then as private equity continues to come down because they have all this liquidity, they don't know what to do with. Mm-hmm. And then like we were talking about earlier, they're rolling up companies, they're pushing up those values. So hopefully we'll hit like a little bit of a ceiling there because it'll get to a point where it doesn't cash flow. Yeah. And then it'll get to a point where your investors are like, no, I'm okay. I don't want to put in money because I'm not going to get the same return because I'm essentially overpaying for the business. Right. So yeah, it makes me a little nervous.
Which is probably like, you know, you're I see you closing some deals. I see some transactions in the marketplace on our side, and I just see there's still transactions.
Oh yeah.
If I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but if you would have guessed a year ago that the level of activity would still be, you know, it's maybe not going through the roof, but still stable, I would have not guessed this. I don't know about you. But.
No, I mean, it's kind of the same thing during COVID we talked about earlier. Like the middle of 2020 was probably like the slowest it's ever been. Mm-hmm. I actually kind of enjoyed a month or two of like just sitting there and hanging out with my kids and not working 60 hours. But then I started to get real nervous. Like, well, are people going to buy businesses? Are they going to sell businesses? We had a lot of people pull them off the market. There wasn't much transactions going on. And then I feel like every single year we keep saying, this can't keep going this way. It can't keep increasing. Right. So last year I did just under 50 million. Okay. I'm almost at 50 million right now, and we're in middle of July. So I'll probably do 85 to 100. And I'm not slowing down at all. I'm like, it's crazy. That's like, so crazy. Yeah, I need another assistant probably. But so I'm not seeing it slow down, but I think even looking at some of the new guidelines with the SBA, it doesn't look like they want it to slow down either. They're making it easier to buy businesses. Yeah. You had mentioned earlier about the seller kind of staying on, essentially, rolling in some equity. That actually came out yesterday. The SBA said that anybody that has ownership in an acquisition like that has to be a guarantor on the loan. So it's something new.
So it's not the 20% rule anymore.
Yeah.
So even if they have less than 20%, they still have to be a guarantor?
Yes.
Ooh, didn't know that.
Yeah. So the new SOP comes out next month. Okay. It'll go into effect next month. Yeah. So that's probably what we're going to see. So a lot of times what the SBA does is they will roll out all the new rules and they'll say they go into effect in 2 months. Yeah. But they make the rules extremely vague when they come out. So we're all sitting here trying to interpret them and get them to make sense. Wow, and then finally they'll give us examples and they'll say, this is what we meant. And so that's what they just did yesterday.
You on 1%, you got to be a PG.
Yeah. So now we still have a couple of weeks, so it might change.
Yeah.
But
you saw how excited the community was, right?
Yeah. Well, it made perfect sense too, though, from the way we look at it. Oftentimes it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because a lot of times we want the seller to stay involved, especially if there's licensing that needs to transfer, right? And you have a lot of these deals where somebody is really, really good at whatever widget they make or whatever service they provide, but they are terrible when it comes to sales or accounting or inventory management. I mean, if I had $1 for every deal where they say, oh, the seller doesn't even, do their own accounting, they don't do their financials until year end. You're like, what? Yep. So you throw in this good partner, right, that has some good experience, good education, and maybe, fulfills that side that they're missing. And we love to see that, right? So we were kind of excited about it. The only thing that I get a little nervous about is most deals that do go bad is the partnership breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get a little nervous that you're bringing in a buyer who's most likely, younger
Mm-hmm.
than and buying it from an older seller who's done things a certain way for 25 years. This kid doesn't know what he's talking about, and it blows up. And so we get a little nervous with that. But now I think it's going to be less likely that a seller is going to want to provide a personal guarantee.
For sure.
I think we'll probably see it happen maybe if it's like they're selling to an employee or general manager or something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
And they don't have the liquidity to put down. So we might not see those happen as much.
Yeah.
But at least they've loosened up a little bit on the down payment requirements. So
matter of fact, we're going and we just got an executed LOI with a 10% rollover. So we're gonna need to address that.
Yeah. I know. Yesterday I was recording all day and I wasn't on my phone or my email, and then I finally get on my phone. I have like 15 text messages from everybody mad, and I'm like, oh no, they must have changed something. Yeah. So. Man. So we've covered a lot. You've mentioned a couple times that you just weren't ready to be an operator and keep searching. But I think maybe you look at it a little different. You kind of almost became an operator of something different.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Do you think you'll ever go back into searching or maybe something will land on your desk one day that you're like, okay, this makes sense. I can do it. Do you think that'll happen?
I don't know. And so the way I kind of approach life now is like, you ever really wanted something, you try to control every aspect to get that goal, and you didn't get it.
Yeah.
And it just really didn't turn out. So, the older I get, the more I approach life as more opportunistic, right? Mm-hmm. Like if there's a business that I really love, and that I can really see myself diving into, I would, hands down, we'd look at it, right? And so even my partner, Luke, and I, we talk about, maybe we should buy something, right? That we can still do our thing,
right? But
still run, hire an operator.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'd really do, right? Yeah. So one of the deals that we didn't talk about that failed, we were post LOI. I had actually had an operator in place. Mm. And so I had an operator in place, and we had a contract agreement and everything. We found out the financials weren't on par, of course, but so that the business we're going to buy ended up hiring the person that I found as the CEO to run that company.
It's always something.
But no, to be frantic, it wasn't like out of bad intention. They did ask me, right?
Okay.
But it was just it was proof to me that was going to work, right? Because I found a really good operator that had experience in everything. So that's what I would do if we do go down that path.
Do something like that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, we've covered a lot. I'm sure we could do another, one. We might need to just do a full podcast. It's just Jarryd and Jarryd or something.
Yeah, we do.
We'll figure it out. But I always ask 2 questions at the end. So first one is, have you ever had a mentor, or do you have a mentor?
I've had plenty of mentors that came and gone. And so, and I think in part, some of it was probably my fault and some of it was probably their fault, right? And so I think I didn't follow up as much as I should, with that mentor, or maybe I had more expectations than I should have of them. But, really, I have one mentor right now, and it's God, right? Like I'm a very Christian, faith-driven individual, and and I think it's come from all those mentors that just came out of like, I've been so disappointed. I've met some really cool people on the journey that I thought were going to be with me, right? Mm-hmm. And here I am, like, not with them.
Yeah.
And that's not to say don't find a mentor. It's just be very careful who you choose. Interview them just as much as they interview you, right? Because you have that potential to be something great, right? And so don't, find your mentor, but just be very careful about who you choose.
Yeah, some great advice.
Yeah.
Thanks. And last one, you've been successful. You've done a lot of things. You were a tennis star at a young age. You've become, one of the experts in the industry. But what motivates you?
I got 3 kids, a loving, supporting wife. So living in this great state of California can be taxing.
Literally.
So from a financial aspect, that definitely motivates me. But more so, it's I think it's freedom, right? Like you said, I've now, although I didn't want to operate a company, I still am some form of operator right now as a minority partner. But I work hard every day. I work hard every week, but I have the freedom to work the hours that I want to work.
Right.
At the end of the day, I'm a sales guy, right? So as long as I'm producing, I can take that freedom and go on a vacation. I can have that freedom. I don't have to answer to anybody, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really what motivates me is just being free, not to not work, but being free to be able to choose when I want to work hard, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Some great advice there. So where can people find you?
Twitter is SMB Capital with a K, Capital. And then, LinkedIn's fine as well. Jarryd Osborne, Jarryd, unlike my man here, Jarred, which is the normal spelling.
Yeah.
Jarryd, Osborne, Osborne, at LinkedIn.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. We hope you found this podcast informative and helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. For more information, or if you'd like to discuss a transaction, please go to www.jarreddwjohnson.com.